Thanks, guys. Welcome back to the Eagles face-off between the Republicans and Democrats. On my right is the College Republicans President Joseph Beaver, and on my left, the College Democrats President Scout Weber. Thank you both so much for being here tonight. President Beaver, we will start with your response to the questions and then to be followed by President Weber. Let's begin. What is your view of President Trump's policies regarding climate change, and what changes, if any, do you think need to be made?
I think the problem with him is his temperament and how he talks about climate change. I actually think policy-wise, he's actually pretty good. One of the things that he tried to do with China and the China trade deal before the virus is to have them switch from soft coal to natural gas. Natural gas being something that if China used exclusively as opposed to soft coal, our global emissions would go down by a third. I think we should be focusing on something like that, switching to something that's foreseeable. You know, I like wind, I like solar, but right now they're not as efficient as we'd like them to be. Things like nuclear, you know, there's bad public perception as far as nuclear. I think we could run the entire continental United States off of 7 nuclear power plants. He's expressed interest in stuff like that before, but his big thing right now is natural gas. Natural gas, I think, is the foreseeable future as far as reducing global emissions. Where I think we should go from here is the innovation of technology. You know, one of the things I liked about President Obama's address to the acceptance speech at the Democratic Convention is that he addressed us needing to innovate technology. We need to innovate our way out of these things. You know, carbon capture technology. You know, at that point, he was still advocating for things like clean coal and things like that. I think we could have a modified version of it's a policy called, it escapes my mind, but essentially it sells off carbon emitting permits. Cap and trade is what it's called. And in the 90s, that actually reduced acid rain by about 99%. Policies like that adhere to market forces, that actually use the markets in order to innovate our way out of this problem into reducing emissions. We have to be honest about the problem. A great deal of the atmosphere in the greenhouse effect is water vapor. That we cannot measure. What we can measure is carbon emissions. I don't think we need an entire takeover of the economy. I do think that, you know, locally we need to start making innovations in how we build houses and how we do cars. Big companies like Tesla has actually made electric cars fashionable, and I think they're on the forefront in putting us in the right direction for the future.
All right, and President Weber, your response?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you said. I think that there are a lot of really great options out there. One of the big things that President Trump did was he pulled the U.S. out of the Paris Climate Accord, which just sort of sent a message to us and to everyone abroad saying that we don't really care about that. In my opinion, I think that's what that says. And I think that's one of the biggest problems with me about Trump. He just doesn't care as much as I think he should. And climate change is something that we need to be taking very seriously right now.
Yeah. Joe, do you think it is an appropriate decision to let President Trump appoint Amy Barrett to the Supreme Court, especially this close to the end of his term as president?
I think it's a good thing. I think it's insensitive. But that's my biggest problem with it. And I think as far as politics goes, I think I'm past the, insensitive part. I like jurists that are actually going to apply the law as written. I wouldn't want him to appoint somebody that's just going to kowtow to whatever he says or whatever he wants or whatever policies he wants. I want somebody that's actually going to read the Constitution as written. As we talked about the Affordable Care Act in the last segment, we have nothing to worry about with the Affordable Care Act so long as it's constitutional. And if it's struck down, I think we should write something else that is constitutional in accordance with the Commerce Clause and things like that. She is of excellent character. She is an excellent jurist. And I'm looking for somebody that is going to fill a seat, especially when we go into this election, which could be so contentious that it goes to the Supreme Court. Now, if it went to the Supreme Court, as it is right now, nobody filling Ruth Bader Ginsburg's seat, it would be likely a 4-4 decision, which would then go down to a circuit court decision. And that would very much take away the American confidence in our courts and our election system. I don't want that. I would want 9 seats on the court so we have a deciding opinion should, God forbid, the election go all the way to the Supreme Court like it did in 2000.
All right, thank you. And President Weber, your response?
Regarding the election, I think that the Supreme Court should be, it shouldn't be as tied to politics as what it is right now. And prior to President Obama, there was no real precedent on whether people should be able to appoint someone during an election year. And I think prior to that, that would have been fine. But because Republicans set the precedent with President Obama, I think that's something that we need to adhere to. So because that precedent is there, I think that it would only be fair to wait until after the election.
Definitely. Joe, if Amy Barrett does get appointed to a seat on the Supreme Court, what do you think that means for the future of Supreme Court decisions, as she does tend to lean more conservative in her views?
I think she's going to leave her views at the door, and I think that's what a judge should do. To speak on what you just said, I think there is precedent. I think the Constitution does read as with the advice and consent of the Senate. And in 2016, we didn't have the consent of the Senate in Merrick Garland with President Obama. It is dirty, it's politics, but I think there is a precedent set in the Constitution. Now, back on Amy Coney Barrett, she's someone that her philosophy, her judicial philosophy, is set on actually making decisions that most of the time you probably are not going to agree with. We saw this in many different cases before. There was a case this year where Judge Kavanaugh wrote a dissenting opinion about reading on the basis of sexual identity and gender identity and sexual preference into the 1964 Civil Rights Act. He basically said, yeah, this is great, having this kind of, you can't discriminate for your sexual identity and things like that. But as a policy preference, I might agree with that, but I'm not going to take that to the bench. I don't think that was what it was written as in 1964. So I would like a judge like Amy Coney Barrett to apply the law as written, to actually look to both sides and hear both sides of the argument based on existing precedent going back to what the Constitution is. That way we don't have politics in our courts. That way we don't have Republican and Democrat jurists. We have people that are going to vote differently depending on what their policy views are. A lot of the time, our conservative bloc and our liberal bloc actually kind of mix and change opinions. Justice Gorsuch, he broke with a lot of his colleagues in a 5-4 decision that basically said that half of Oklahoma belonged to, I forget the tribe down there, Cherokee or something like that. They actually had rights to that based on a law written in 1910. Conservatives were not too happy about that. And that's what I want a judge to be, to apply the law as, the law is, not as how the judge sees fit.
Yeah. And President Weber, your response?
Yeah, we know that RBG was a powerhouse for women everywhere, and Amy Coney Barrett and her, along with many of her conservative colleagues, have openly said that Roe v. Wade is unsettled for them and that they would overturn it if they had the chance. And I just don't think that's something that women want. That's not, I think that it's been decided that it's constitutional and that's the way it is. I just don't see the point in overturning that.
Mm-hmm. Who do you think is going to be the one that comes out on top?
Well, I would hope the American people. I would hope that, we realize that no matter Biden for 4 years, no matter Trump for another 4 years, that we are in charge of our own destiny. We are the change we want to see in our communities. If you wanted to change something as far as how your police in your system goes, you see corruption, you see, police brutality, as we mentioned before, encourage your young men and women to become cops. I come from parents of cops. We need good cops. Be the change you want to see in your community. And that goes for other things too. As far as like low-income neighborhoods, and that goes for urban as well as rural. you know, you need financial support. You need to be able to take out loans and things like that. So if you're not seeing banks come in and giving out loans to the people that need it most, to start up businesses, to have your communities flourish, encourage your neighbors to start credit unions. You know, we're the only ones, the government's not coming. You know, we're going to be disappointed time and time again. We think if Trump's going to, you know, be the savior of all of our problems, if Biden's going to be the savior of all of our problems. You know, I am voting for Trump because I haven't seen with Biden that I'm trusted to handle my own destiny, to pursue my own happiness. With Trump, I get out of his message that, you know, I am in control of that me and my friends, my family, my community, you know, we can keep making America great again every single day. And that's why I'm voting the way I am.
All right, and President Weber, your response?
Yeah, I mean, I hope that Joe Biden wins, but I honestly have no idea who will win right now. It feels very close. It feels, again, like we're so divided. And I just hope that, like what you were saying, no matter what happens, that we can come past that and feel comfortable again. That's all I want to feel.
Yeah. All right, that's all the time we have for Eagles Face Off. Thank you both so much for joining me tonight for this debate. Now back to you guys at the Election 20 update set.